The woman hit the water like a sack. Not gently, not slowly. She was thrown. 1 second, she was a small body in the air, her brown Ankara wrapper flying, her grey hair whipping around her face. The next second, the dark Lagos River swallowed her with a loud splash that made the whole bridge shake. People screamed, cars jammed the road above, horns blared, drivers stepped out and ran to the railings, traders dropped their buckets. A man's phone fell and cracked on the concrete. God, help her. Somebody jump. But nobody moved. Nobody climbed down. Nobody even stepped close to the edge again, because the river looked hungry. Black, deep, angry. And because the men who threw her in were still there. They stood near a parked car with its hazard lights blinking. 3 men, dark clothes, hard faces. They didn't look scared at all. They looked calm, like they had done this before. One of them leaned on the car door and watched the crowd like he was counting heads. Another one smiled. The third one lifted his hand and pointed at the water like he was telling the river, "Finish the job." The crowd froze. People kept shouting, but it was the kind of shouting that never turns into action. The kind that stays far away. Then a voice cut through the noise. A low voice, a tired voice. Move. A man pushed through the crowd like he didn't care who was important or who was watching. His coat was ash-colored and torn at the elbows. It was soaked in old stains, mud, rain, maybe worse. A dirty bag hung on one shoulder, slapping his side as he walked. His hair was overgrown and wild. His beard was tangled like a bush. He looked like the kind of man people avoided. But his eyes were sharp. Like he had seen pain so many times that fear no longer impressed him. Someone grabbed his arm. Ogre, no, that water. He didn't even look back. Another woman cried, "They will kill you, those men." He turned his head just once and said something that sounded simple, but it landed heavy. "If I stand here and watch her die, I'm already dead." Then he climbed up the railings and jumped. The crowd screamed again, louder this time. His body cut into the river. The water swallowed him too. For a moment, there was only the river. Only waves. Only bubbles. People leaned forward. Some covered their mouths. One girl started crying hard, like she already knew what was coming. Seconds passed. 10, 20, 30. Someone whispered, "He has gone." Another person said, "It has finished." Then the water moved again. A head broke through the surface. Then shoulders. Then arms, strong arms, fighting the river like it was an enemy. And in those arms was the old woman, Madame Sandra. Her eyes were closed. Her body was limp. Her hands hung like wet cloth. Her grey hair was plastered across her face. The crowd erupted. Shouts turned into wild cheering. People clapped without thinking. Some cried louder now from relief. Drivers on the bridge stood on their car bonnets to see better. He got her. Ah, he got her. God bless you. Hold on, hold on. Jude kicked and pulled, dragging himself and Madame Sandra toward the riverbank below the bridge. Every time he lifted his head to breathe, water ran down his face like tears. His coat clung to him like a heavy blanket. He finally reached a slippery slab of concrete near the bank. His knees hit it hard. He coughed, gasping. Still, he didn't drop her. He shifted her body higher in his arms and started climbing using his elbows, his knees, anything he could. The crowd above leaned over the railings, shouting instructions that Jude couldn't even hear properly. Turn her to the side. Press her chest. Bring rope. Bring ladder. But nobody had rope. Nobody had ladder. Nobody had a plan. Only Jude had done something. Jude reached a point where he could stand on a narrow ledge, right below the road. His shoes slipped. He held Madame Sandra tighter. He looked up. He was just a little distance away from climbing back to the road where the crowd was gathered. Then everything changed. A deep engine sound rolled in like thunder. One black SUV. Then another. Then another. Then more. A convoy. The crowd went quiet, like someone pressed a mute button. Even the men who threw Madame Sandra into the river stopped smiling. The SUVs parked in a straight line on the bridge, blocking the road like a wall. Their windows were tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. People stepped back. Some people started recording again, but their hands were shaking. The first SUV door opened. A security man stepped out tall, wide, wearing black. An earpiece curled behind his ear. Then another security man. Then another. They formed a tight line. The air felt different, heavier, like the bridge itself knew someone powerful had arrived. Then the door of the biggest SUV opened, and a man stepped out. He was young, not too young, but not old. Early 40s maybe, dark-skinned, clean-shaven. His clothes were simple but expensive, a crisp white shirt, dark trousers, shoes that looked like they cost more than a small car. But it wasn't his outfit that made people step back. It was his face, his eyes. They were frantic, panicked, like a son searching for his mother in a market crowd. He looked around, fast, left, right, down, and then his gaze locked on Jude. On Jude standing there, soaked, shivering, holding an unconscious old woman in his arms. The man's mouth opened. His breath caught. Then he ran. Not his guards, not his drivers, not his assistants. Him. He pushed past the security line and sprinted to the edge of the bridge. People tried to move out of his way, stumbling, shocked. "Sir! Sir, wait!" A guard shouted, but the man didn't stop. He dropped to his knees at the railing and stared down, his eyes filling with tears so fast it looked like rain. "Mum," he whispered. The crowd gasped. The word spread like fire. That woman is his mother. The man stood up and started climbing down the side path that led toward the lower bank, moving so fast his shoe almost slipped. Then someone finally said his name out loud like it was too huge to be real. "That's Sam Andrew," another voice answered, trembling. "The CEO. Samtech." People's eyes widened more. Sam Andrew, billionaire CEO. On this dirty bridge, in the middle of this chaos, for that old woman. Sam reached the lower bank and rushed straight to Jude. His hands shook as he looked at Madame Sandra's face, her closed eyes, her wet hair stuck to her cheek. Sam's voice broke. "Who did this to her?" Jude tried to speak, but his throat was tight. All he could do was shake his head and adjust Madame Sandra in his arms so she wouldn't slip. Sam looked at Jude, then really looked. He saw the torn ash coat, the muddy bag, the overgrown hair, the water dripping off Jude's beard. Then Sam's eyes softened in a way that surprised everyone watching. He grabbed Jude's shoulder, like Jude was the only solid thing in the world. "Thank you," Sam said, and tears spilled down his face. "Thank you for saving my mother." Jude blinked. For a second, he thought he misheard. Because rich men like this didn't talk to men like him. They didn't touch them. They didn't cry in front of strangers. But Sam Andrew was crying, and he was holding Jude's shoulder. Then Sam turned to his guards and finally gave an order, sharp, urgent. "Bring the car down as close as possible. Now." The guards moved instantly. Sam turned back to Jude. His voice was gentle now, but fierce with urgency. "Give her to me." Jude tightened his grip without meaning to, like the river was still trying to take her. I don't think she's breathing well," Jude managed to say, his voice rough. "We need a doctor." Sam nodded fast. "We're going to the Lagos Medical Center, right now." Sam carefully lifted Madame Sandra from Jude's arms. The moment Madame Sandra left Jude's body, Jude swayed like a tree that had been holding weight for too long. His legs shook, his lips were turning pale. But he forced himself to stand straight, watching Sam like he was watching a dream. Sam started climbing up with his mother in his arms, struggling but refusing help. Guards reached out to support him, but he snapped, "Leave me." He carried her himself. The crowd cleared a path like Moses' Sea. Phones recorded, mouths stayed open. Some people cried again. Jude followed behind, taking shaky steps. When they reached the road, Sam didn't even look at Jude's dripping clothes or the smell of river water. He turned and pointed at Jude like it was the most normal thing in the world. "You," Sam said, breathing hard. "Come with me. Now." One of the guards frowned. "Sir, he's—" Sam's head whipped. His eyes flashed. "I said, he's coming." The guard shut up instantly. Jude froze. He pointed at himself. "Me?" Sam nodded. "Yes, you." Jude stared at the shiny black SUV door as it opened. He stared at the clean leather seats. He looked down at his soaked coat and muddy shoes. People around whispered, "Will he enter like that? Ah, this life." Jude hesitated just 1 second. Then he stepped forward and climbed into the billionaire's SUV. The door shut behind him with a soft thunk that sounded like a final decision. The convoy engines roared, and as they pulled away at speed toward the hospital, Jude looked through the tinted window back at the river that almost stole Madame Sandra, the river that almost stole him too. His hands were still shaking, his heart was still pounding, and the biggest question in his mind was not even, will she survive? It was this: why would a billionaire's mother be thrown into a river like she was nothing? Because Jude had seen the men's faces, and something told him this was not an accident. As the convoy sped through Lagos traffic, sirens screaming, Sam sat beside his unconscious mother, holding her hand, whispering, "Please, Mummy, please." Then Sam turned suddenly and looked straight at Jude. His eyes were red. His voice was low, like a warning. "If my mother dies," Sam said, "I will burn Lagos to find who did this." Jude swallowed. Outside, the city blurred past. Inside, Madame Sandra's chest barely rose. And in that moment between life and death, Jude realized something terrifying. Saving her was only the beginning. And whatever was coming next was bigger than the river. The sirens screamed through Lagos like wounded animals. Cars swerved out of the way as the convoy forced a path forward. Inside the black SUV, the air felt tight, like there wasn't enough space for fear, hope, and breath to exist together. Madame Sandra lay across the back seat, her head resting on Sam Andrews' lap. Her face was pale, her lips were slightly open. Every shallow rise of her chest felt like a fragile promise that could break at any second. Sam held her hand with both of his, pressing it against his chest as if he could push life back into her by force. "Stay with me, Mum," he whispered again and again. "Please, just stay." Jude sat opposite them, his wet clothes sticking to his skin. River water dripped from the hem of his tattered ash coat onto the expensive carpet of the SUV. He didn't notice. His eyes were locked on Madame Sandra's face, watching her chest like a child counting seconds. He had pulled people from water before. He knew this look. It was the look of someone standing on the thin line between here and gone. The driver shouted from the front, "Sir, Lagos Medical Center in 2 minutes." Sam leaned forward. "Call ahead. Tell them my mother is coming. Tell them it's critical." One of the guards spoke quickly into his phone. Jude swallowed hard. His throat burned from river water and fear. He wanted to say something, anything helpful, but every word felt too small. Instead, he closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. And the river came back. Cold hands, dark water, the heavy drag of another body. He opened his eyes fast. Not now, he told himself. The SUV screeched into the hospital compound. Security gates flew open before the car even stopped. Doctors and nurses rushed forward with a stretcher. "Careful, her neck. Pulse is weak. Prepare emergency room 2. Sam jumped out before the car fully stopped, lifting his mother again like she weighed nothing. Jude followed, stumbling slightly as his legs protested. As they rushed through the sliding hospital doors, people turned and stared. Some recognized Sam Andrew instantly. Others didn't, but they could tell this was important. Doctors took Madame Sandra from Sam's arms. "No," Sam protested for half a second, fear flaring. "We need to work, sir," the doctor said firmly, but respectfully. "You can't come inside." Sam froze, hands empty now, shaking. The doors slammed shut. Just like that, Madame Sandra disappeared behind white walls. Silence hit. The kind of silence that roars. Sam stood there, staring at the closed doors. His chest rose and fell too fast. His jaw clenched so tight a muscle jumped. Jude stood a few steps behind him, unsure where he belonged. A nurse approached with a towel. "Sir, you're soaked. Please." Sam waved her away without looking. Not now. Then, slowly, he turned and looked at Jude. Really looked. From the tangled beard, to the tired eyes, to the torn coat clinging to his thin frame. Sam took a step closer. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Jude," Jude replied. His voice came out rough. "Jude Okori." Sam nodded once, like he was carving the name into stone. "You didn't hesitate," Sam said. "You didn't even ask who she was." Jude shrugged slightly. "She was drowning." Sam stared at him like that answer shook, something deep inside him. Most people had reasons. Jude had only truth. A guard cleared his throat. "Sir, should we?" Sam lifted his hand, stopping him. No, he said firmly. He stays. Jude blinked. Sir, I can. Sam shook his head. You're not leaving. They moved to the waiting area. Sam dropped into a chair, elbows on knees, head in his hands. Jude sat opposite him, dripping quietly onto the floor. Minutes passed, then more. Every time the doors moved, Sam's head snapped up. Every time they stayed shut, fear grew heavier. Finally, a doctor stepped out. Sam was on his feet instantly. Doctor? The doctor removed his mask slowly. His face was serious. She's alive, he said. Sam's knees almost gave way. He grabbed the back of a chair. But, the doctor continued, and the word fell like a stone. She inhaled a lot of water. Her lungs are struggling. She also has a head injury. The next few hours are very critical. Sam nodded, swallowing. Can I see her? For a moment, the doctor said. One person. Sam turned without thinking and stopped. He looked at Jude. Then back at the doctor. Then back at Jude. Let him come too, Sam said. The doctor hesitated. Sir, he saved her life, Sam said, his voice hard now. If he didn't jump, there would be no patient to treat. The doctor sighed. 1 minute, that's all. Inside the ICU, machines beeped softly. Tubes ran from Madame Sandra's nose and arms. Her chest rose with the help of a machine now. Jude stood frozen at the foot of the bed. She looked smaller, weaker. Nothing like the strong old woman who had fought the river, even unconscious. Sam moved to her side, holding her hand gently. Mum, he whispered. I'm here. Jude watched from a distance, heart heavy. This was the end point of bravery, sometimes standing helpless after doing all you could. They were ushered out quickly. Back in the waiting area, Sam finally spoke again. You're homeless, he said, not as an insult, but as a fact. Jude nodded. Yes. You swim like someone trained, Sam continued. Jude looked down at his hands. I used to. Sam waited. The silence stretched. Jude exhaled slowly. I was a swimmer, national level, 2-time champion. Sam's head snapped up. What? Jude gave a small, humorless smile. Life happened. Sam leaned forward. What kind of life takes a champion swimmer and puts him on the street? Jude didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. Prison, he said. Sam stiffened. I was framed, Jude continued. Set up. I lost everything. When I came out, nobody wanted me. No job, no second chance. Sam stared at him, anger building in his eyes, not at Jude, but at something unseen. Before he could speak, a nurse rushed toward them, urgency written all over her face. Mr. Andrew. Sam stood. Yes? There's been a complication, the nurse said quickly. Your mother. Sam's heart slammed against his ribs. What? He demanded. She just regained consciousness, the nurse said. Relief crashed over Sam. Then the nurse added softly, but she's asking questions. Sam frowned. Questions? She keeps repeating one thing, the nurse said, lowering her voice. Sam leaned closer. What is she saying? The nurse looked at Jude, then back at Sam. She's asking, the nurse said, where is the man who pulled me from the river? Jude's breath caught. Sam turned to him slowly, emotion flooding his face. She wants to see you. As they started toward the ICU again, Sam's phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He checked the screen. His face hardened. Jude noticed it immediately. Problem? Jude asked. Sam's jaw tightened. Yes, Sam said, a big one. He showed Jude the phone. It was a message. Unknown number. Stop digging into what happened on the bridge, or the next body in the river will be yours. Sam's eyes burned. And for the first time since the rescue, Jude felt the same cold fear he had felt in the water. Because now he knew the truth. Saving Madame Sandra hadn't just changed his life. It had put a target on his back. Madame Sandra's eyes opened slowly. Not wide, not suddenly, just a gentle flutter, like someone waking from a long, heavy dream. The first thing she felt was pain deep, dull pain in her chest, then a strange tightness around her nose, then the soft beeping sound, steady and calm, telling her she was still here. She tried to move her hand. It didn't go far. Another hand was already holding it. Warm, firm, familiar. Sam, she whispered, her voice barely louder than air. Sam Andrew leaned over her instantly. His eyes were red and swollen, like he hadn't slept at all. "Mum," he said, smiling and crying at the same time. "You're awake." She blinked again, trying to focus on his face. "You look tired." Sam laughed quietly, then wiped his face. "You scared me." Madame Sandra turned her head slightly, then frowned. "The water," she murmured. "I was in the water." Sam nodded. "Yes." Her eyes sharpened a little. "I didn't come out by myself." "No," Sam said softly. Her gaze moved past him, scanning the room slowly, carefully. "Where is he?" she asked. Sam swallowed. "Who, Mum?" "The man," she said. "The one who pulled me out. The one with the tired eyes." Jude froze at the foot of the bed. Sam stepped aside. "He's here." Madame Sandra's eyes landed on Jude. And in that moment, something changed. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. She stretched her hand out weakly. Jude hesitated, then stepped forward and took it gently. "You," Madame Sandra whispered. "You came back for me." Jude nodded. His voice failed him. "They threw me away," she continued, tears slipping down her face. "Like I was nothing. But you jumped." Her grip tightened, surprising him with its strength. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for choosing my life." Sam turned his face away, unable to watch without breaking. The nurse cleared her throat gently. "Madam, you need to rest." Madame Sandra nodded, still holding Jude's hand. "He stays," she said firmly. "Even if I sleep." The nurse smiled. For a moment. Outside the ICU, Sam leaned against the wall and exhaled shakily. "She remembers you," he said. Jude nodded. "I'm glad she's alive." Sam looked at him carefully. "You should be resting too. You almost collapsed." "I'm fine," Jude said automatically. Sam shook his head. "No, you're not." Before Jude could argue, Sam's phone rang. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a call. Sam answered it, his voice cold. "Talk." There was shouting on the other end. Sam listened silently, his expression darkening by the second. When the call ended, he closed his eyes. "They found the car," he said. Jude's heart skipped. "The one from the bridge?" "Yes," Sam replied. "It was stolen. Fake plates. But—" he paused. "The men weren't random." Jude waited. Sam looked straight at him. "They work for someone." A chill ran through Jude. "Who?" he asked. Sam shook his head. "Not yet. But whoever tried to kill my mother didn't expect a man like you to be there." Jude swallowed. "Then they might come again." Sam nodded slowly. "Exactly." A guard approached quietly. "Sir, we've secured the hospital, but the risk remains." Sam turned back to Jude. "This is no longer just about my mother, it's about you too." Jude frowned. "Me?" "They saw you," Sam said. "Your face, your courage." Jude felt his stomach tighten. He had faced waves, prison walls, hunger, but this felt different. Powerful enemies were not like rivers. They didn't get tired. Sam straightened. "When my mother is stable, you're coming with us." Jude blinked. "Where?" "My home," Sam said. "The mansion." Jude shook his head slowly. "Sir, I don't belong in places like that." Sam stepped closer. "You belong wherever you choose to stand for what is right." Before Jude could respond, the ICU door opened again. The doctor walked out, calmer this time. "She's stable," he said. "We'll keep her under observation, but the danger has reduced." Sam closed his eyes in relief. The doctor looked at Jude. "Young man, you saved a life today." Jude nodded quietly. That night, Jude sat alone in the hospital corridor. The lights were dim. The noise was low. Sam had stepped away to make calls. Guards stood at a distance. Jude leaned back and stared at the ceiling. His body ached. His mind raced. He thought of prison, the cold nights, the unfair sentence, the way people looked away when he told his story. He thought of the river and how easy it would have been to walk away. A nurse approached with a cup of water. "You should drink." "Thank you," Jude said. She smiled softly. "You're a hero, you know." Jude shook his head. "I just didn't want her to die." The nurse nodded. "That's usually how heroes talk." Hours later, Sam returned. "My mother is sleeping," he said. "She asked for you again before she slept." Jude looked up. "Is she okay?" Sam smiled faintly. She will be. They walked outside the hospital into the cool Lagos night. The city lights flickered in the distance. Sam leaned against his car. "Tell me everything," he said. Jude hesitated, then spoke. He talked about his childhood by the river, his first swim, his first medal. He talked about the coach who betrayed him, the false charge, the prison cell that took away his name. He talked about coming out with nothing but strong arms and a broken past. Sam listened without interrupting. By the time Jude finished, Sam's eyes were wet. "They took your future," Sam said quietly. Jude shrugged. "I survived." Sam shook his head. "No. You were buried alive." Sam straightened suddenly, his voice firm. "That ends now." Jude looked up. "What do you mean?" Sam pointed toward the city. "Tomorrow, when my mother is discharged, you will come with us." "I can't." "You will," Sam interrupted. "And when you tell your story in my house, it will be heard." Jude felt something stir inside him. Hope. Small. Dangerous. Just then, a guard rushed toward them. "Sir," the guard whispered urgently. "We have a situation." Sam's expression hardened. "Speak." "One of the men from the bridge has been seen near the hospital gate," the guard said, asking questions. Jude's heart pounded. Sam's eyes turned cold. "They're not done," Sam said. He turned to Jude. "And neither are we." The hospital lights glowed behind them. The night pressed in around them. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was watching. The hospital gates slid open quietly at dawn. Mist hung low in the air. And the city looked calm, in a way that felt almost fake, like Lagos was holding its breath. Madame Sandra was wheeled out carefully, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her eyes were open now, clearer, stronger, tubes were gone. Only quiet machines followed behind. Sam walked beside her, one hand on the wheelchair, the other gripping his phone. Guards surrounded them, alert, scanning every corner. Jude walked a few steps back, still in the same tattered ash coat, still wet in places, still unsure if any of this was real. Madame Sandra turned her head slowly and smiled when she saw him. "You didn't run away," she said. Jude shook his head. "I promised myself I wouldn't." She nodded. "Good. The world has too many people who run." They helped her into the SUV. Sam opened the door himself, refusing help again. Before Jude could step back, Sam looked at him. "You're coming," Sam said, firm but calm. Jude hesitated. "Sir, I can sleep under the bridge again. I don't want trouble." Sam's voice dropped. "Jude, trouble already knows your name." That settled it. Jude climbed into the SUV. The convoy moved quickly through the city, avoiding traffic, taking unfamiliar routes. Jude watched through the window as crowded streets slowly gave way to quieter roads, then wide gates, then tall walls topped with cameras. The mansion stood like a fortress, white walls, glass balconies, calm fountains, flowing like nothing bad had ever touched the world. Jude swallowed. He had seen places like this only from outside. The gates opened. As the car stopped, staff rushed forward, shock written on their faces when they saw Madame Sandra. "She's alive," someone whispered, hands covering their mouth. Madame Sandra lifted a hand weakly. "I'm home." Inside, the mansion smelled clean. Warm, safe. Jude felt out of place immediately. A housekeeper approached him gently. "Sir, please let me take that coat." Jude tightened his grip. "No, it's fine." Madame Sandra noticed and spoke softly. "Leave him. That coat carried my life back to me." The housekeeper nodded and stepped away. They settled Madame Sandra into a large living room, sunlight pouring through tall windows. She rested against soft pillows while a doctor checked her again. Sam finally turned to Jude. "You need rest, food, a bath." Jude shook his head. "After she's okay." Madame Sandra smiled. "Stubborn like my son," she said. "Go." Reluctantly, Jude followed a staff member to a guest room. The bathroom alone looked bigger than anywhere he had slept in years. He stood under the shower for a long time, letting hot water hit his shoulders. The river finally left his body, but not his mind. When he dressed in clean clothes, given to him simple, plain, he barely recognized himself in the mirror. Later, Jude sat in the living room again, across from Madame Sandra and Sam. "Tell me everything," Madame Sandra said. Jude took a deep breath. He told his story slowly this time. The medals, the cheers, the future everyone promised him, the setup, the court, the prison gates closing behind him. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just spoke. When he finished, the room was quiet. Madame Sandra's hands trembled slightly. "They stole your name," she said. "They buried you alive." Sam stood up suddenly, pacing. "This is the same system," he said bitterly. "The same rot. They don't just steal money, they steal lives." Madame Sandra looked at her son. "Sit." He obeyed instantly. She turned back to Jude. "You saved me twice," she said. "Once from the river, once from dying without knowing people like you still exist." Jude looked down. "I didn't do it for reward." "I know," she replied. "That's why you deserve one." Before Jude could respond, a guard rushed in. "Sir," the guard said to Sam, "we intercepted a vehicle near the outer gate. They were watching the house." Jude's heart sank. Sam's jaw tightened. "Did they see him?" "We don't think so," the guard said. "But they're close." Madame Sandra closed her eyes briefly. "They are not done." Sam turned to Jude. "This is what I was afraid of." Jude stood up. "Then let me go." Sam stared at him. "No. They're after you," Jude said. "Because of me." Sam stepped closer. "They came for my mother before they knew you existed." Madame Sandra spoke firmly. "Jude stays." The room went silent. Her voice, though weak, carried authority. "They wanted me dead," she continued, "and they failed. Now they want silence." She looked at Jude. "But you are proof that silence can drown." That night, the mansion did not sleep. Lights stayed on. Guards rotated. Cameras tracked movement. Jude lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Every sound felt loud. Every shadow felt alive. At midnight, Sam knocked quietly and stepped in. "Can't sleep?" Sam asked. Jude shook his head. Sam sat down. "Neither can I." They sat in silence for a while. Then Sam said, "I want you to coach." Jude frowned. "Coach?" "Swimming," Sam said. "I bought an old training facility today. Quiet. Closed down. Forgotten." Jude's breath caught. "Why?" "Because people tried to erase you," Sam replied, "and I refused to let them win." Jude looked at his hands. "I don't even know if I still belong in the water." Sam smiled faintly. "You jumped into a river without thinking. You never left the water, Jude." Before Jude could answer, an alarm beeped softly in the hallway. A guard's voice followed. "Sir, we have movement." Sam stood instantly. Jude followed him to the security room. A screen showed a dark figure near the outer fence, then another. "They're testing us," Sam said quietly. Madame Sandra appeared at the door, supported by a nurse. "They are afraid," she said. Sam turned to her. "You should be resting." She shook her head. "Not while danger breathes." She looked at Jude. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "Whatever they planned for you, whatever they took, your life is changing." Jude swallowed. Outside, the figures disappeared into the dark. But the message was clear. The danger wasn't gone. It had just learned where Jude lived, and the water that once tried to claim him was nothing compared to what waited next. The next morning, the mansion felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before something breaks. Jude stood by the window, watching the outer fence. Guards paced with their hands near their waists. Cameras turned slowly, like eyes that never blinked. Sam walked in with a hard face and a phone pressed to his ear. When he ended the call, he turned to Jude. "They were not just watching," Sam said. "They were waiting." Jude's stomach tightened. "For what?" Sam's voice dropped. "For you to step outside." Jude exhaled slowly. "So it's true. I'm a target." Madame Sandra's voice came from behind them. "Not a target," she corrected, calm and firm. "A witness." Jude turned. Madame Sandra stood in a simple robe, her grey hair neatly packed back now. She looked weaker than usual, but her eyes were strong, sharp like a knife. Sam frowned. "Mum, you should be resting." Madame Sandra lifted her hand. "I rested enough in the river." Sam's face tightened with emotion. Madame Sandra stepped closer to Jude. "Those men did not throw me into that water for fun," she said. "They did it because I refused to sign something." Jude blinked. "Sign what?" Sam's jaw clenched. "Company documents." Madame Sandra nodded. "They wanted my shares. They wanted control of Samtech. I said no." So they chose the river. Jude's chest felt heavy. So the enemy is inside your world. Sam looked away for a second, then spoke like each word tasted bitter. My uncle, he said. Jude froze. Your uncle? Sam nodded. Uncle Victor. He acts like family, but he has been hungry for power for years. When Mum refused to hand over her shares, he decided to remove her. Madame Sandra's eyes hardened. And if I died, the papers would be easier to force. Jude swallowed. This was bigger than he imagined. He thought he had rescued an old woman from cruel men. He had rescued the key to a whole empire. Sam's phone buzzed again. His guard chief looked at his own device, then stepped forward. Sir, the guard said, we just got something. Sam's eyes narrowed. Talk. One of the men from the bridge has been caught, the guard said. He's ready to talk if he gets protection. Sam stood up instantly. Bring him. Within minutes, they brought the man into a small room in the mansion. He was in handcuffs, shaking, sweat on his forehead. His eyes moved from the guards to Sam, to Madame Sandra, to Jude. When he saw Jude, his face tightened with fear. Sam leaned in close. You threw my mother into a river. The man swallowed. I didn't want to, he whispered. I swear. Madame Sandra stared at him without blinking. But you did. The man's eyes filled with tears. We were paid. We were told it would look like an accident. That she was old and sick. That nobody would jump. His gaze flicked to Jude again. But he jumped. He ruined everything. Jude's hands clenched. Sam's voice became sharp. Who paid you? The man trembled. Uncle Victor's assistant, he said quickly. A man called Kunle. They promised us money and passports. They said after the job, we disappear. Sam's face went cold. Do you have proof? The man nodded fast. My phone, messages, voice notes, everything. Sam turned to his guard. Get it. The guard brought the phone. Sam scanned the messages, his face hard as stone. Then he looked at his mother. Mum, he said, voice shaking. It's him. Madame Sandra closed her eyes slowly, pain crossing her face. Jude expected screaming, anger, rage. But Madame Sandra only whispered, So he truly wanted me dead. Then she opened her eyes and looked at Sam. End it, she said simply. Not with violence. With truth. Sam nodded. That afternoon, Sam did something nobody expected. He called the police. He called his company lawyer. He called the media. And he called one more person, the same judge who had once signed papers to send Jude to prison. Jude didn't know that last part until the man walked into the mansion. The judge looked older than Jude remembered from television. Expensive suit, tired eyes, stiff posture. He walked like a man who knew people hated him. When he saw Jude, he paused. His face changed. Jude Okori, the judge said quietly. Jude's heart pounded. Every memory of prison tried to rise like vomit. Sam stepped in front of Jude. Yes, he said. The same Jude, your system crushed. The judge swallowed. Why am I here? Madame Sandra spoke, calm but heavy. Because today, she said, we stop burying innocent people. Sam dropped a file on the table. This is the confession, Sam said. And this is the proof. My uncle tried to kill my mother. Those same people are connected to the men who framed Jude years ago. Jude's breath caught. Connected? Sam nodded. Kunle. That same assistant? He used to run dirty jobs for Uncle Victor before he worked for him officially. He has been doing it for years, fixing cases, bribing people, destroying lives. The judge's hands trembled slightly. That's a serious accusation. Sam leaned closer. It's not an accusation, it's evidence. The room felt like it was holding fire. The judge looked at Jude again. Something like shame crossed his face. I remember that case, the judge said softly. The swimmer. Jude's throat tightened. Then why did you sentence me? The judge's voice broke a little. Because I was told the evidence was clean. Because I trusted the wrong people. Because I was weak. Jude stared at him. He wanted to scream. But the mansion was quiet, and Madame Sandra's hand rested gently on the chair arm like a reminder to breathe. Sam's lawyer spoke. With this evidence, we can reopen Jude's case. We can also prosecute Victor and his network. Madame Sandra turned to Jude. Do you want justice? She asked. Jude's voice came out low. I want my name back. Madame Sandra nodded. Then we fight smart. That evening, Samtec's boardroom became a battlefield. Sam walked in first, shoulders straight, eyes hard. Guards stood by the doors. The board members sat stiffly, whispering. Then Uncle Victor walked in with a confident smile until he saw Madame Sandra. His smile died. "Madame Sandra?" he stammered. "But, I heard, I'm hard to bury," Madame Sandra said. Victor laughed nervously. "This is good news. God is great." Sam slid a folder across the table. Victor frowned, opened it, and began to read. His face drained. "You tried to kill my mother," Sam said, voice steady but deadly. "And I have your proof." Victor's lips shook. "This is nonsense. Sam, you're being emotional." "Emotional," Sam repeated. "You hired men to throw an old woman into a river." Victor's eyes darted around the room, searching for support, but nobody spoke. Then the police walked in. Victor stood up abruptly. "You can't do this. This is my family." Madame Sandra looked at him with quiet disappointment. "You stopped being family when you chose the river," she said. Victor tried to run, but the guards were already there. Handcuffs clicked. The boardroom stayed silent as Victor was taken away, still shouting, still begging, still pretending. And just like that, a powerful man fell, not because someone fought him with fists, but because someone fought him with truth. Later that night, Jude sat outside the mansion under the soft lights. Sam came and sat beside him. "It's over," Sam said. Jude stared at the sky. "Is it?" Sam nodded. "My uncle will face court. The network will be exposed. Your case is already being reopened." Jude's hands trembled slightly. "I don't know how to feel." Sam smiled faintly. "Feel alive. That's enough for now." The next weeks moved fast, like a dream. News spread across Lagos. Billionaire's mother survives river attack. Samtec CEO exposes internal plot. Wrongfully convicted swimmer's case reopened. Jude watched his own face on TV one morning and almost dropped the cup in his hand. He looked human again. Not a shadow. Not a forgotten man. Months later, Jude stood outside a swimming facility that used to be abandoned. Now it had fresh paint, clean water, bright signs. Sam stood beside him, smiling proudly. "I bought it," Sam said. "It's yours to lead." Jude blinked. "Mine?" Sam shook his head. "Not as charity. As purpose." Madame Sandra stood behind them, smiling softly. "You belonged in the water," she said. "Now help children belong too." Jude became the coach. At first, he was strict, then gentle, then both. He trained kids who had never owned goggles before. He trained teenagers with anger in their hearts. He trained a shy girl who reminded him of himself, quiet, overlooked, powerful. And every year, Sam organized a big event, the Sandra Andrew Annual Swimming Competition. It became famous. Sponsors came, media came, families came. And Jude became a name children spoke with respect. 2 years passed. Jude didn't just earn money. He earned peace. He bought a simple house first, then, later, a bigger one. He built a life that nobody could drown. That was when he met Olivia. She came to the competition as a volunteer doctor. Kind eyes, calm voice, quick hands. She treated an injured boy, then stayed to watch Jude coach. Later, she told him, "You shout like you're saving them." Jude smiled. "Maybe I am." Their friendship grew slowly. No rushing. No pretending. Just two people who understood pain and still chose hope. When Jude finally proposed, he didn't do it with a crowd around. He did it by the pool at sunset. "Olivia," he said, voice shaking, "I lost years. I don't want to lose you too." Olivia cried and nodded. "Yes." And then came the day Jude never believed he would live to see. His wedding day. The hall glowed with warm lights. White flowers lined the aisle like little clouds. Soft music filled the air. Jude stood at the front in a clean suit, hands trembling not from fear, but from gratitude. Sam stood nearby, clapping and smiling like a brother. Then the doors opened. Olivia stepped in, beautiful and glowing, and beside her was Madame Sandra, not in a wheelchair, walking slowly, proudly. Tears filled Jude's eyes when he saw her. Madame Sandra held Olivia's arm and walked her down the aisle. As they reached Jude, Madame Sandra looked up at him. Her voice was low but clear. 2 years ago, she whispered, The river tried to steal you both. Today, you stand here alive. Jude's throat tightened. You changed my life. Madame Sandra smiled. No. You changed mine first. She placed Olivia's hand into Jude's hand. Then she lifted her other hand and gently touched Jude's cheek, like a mother blessing a son. Your kindness paid, she said, and your life is restored. Jude finally broke. Tears rolled down his face, not because he was weak, because he was finally free. As the crowd stood and clapped, Sam wiped his own eyes, smiling wide. And somewhere far away, beyond Lagos, beyond the bridge, beyond the river that once tried to take everything, Jude's old life, his pain, his prison, his hunger felt like a storm that had finally passed. Because one day, on a bridge in Lagos, a man in a tattered ash coat sacrificed his safety to save an old woman. Moments later, a billionaire pulled up, and that single act of courage didn't just save a life, it brought a buried life back to the surface. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.